LSU pulls the upset. Fans storm the field. So what did the recruits think? You'll hear about it next. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lot to get into today. Garrett Nussmeier's Heisman odds naturally are soaring after the win over Ole Miss. Our weekly visit with Sean Salisbury, quarterback guru, former NFL quarterback, but this is so good, y'all. I'm going to play for you Sean's analysis, his film breakdown of Garrett Nussmeier's touchdown pass on 4th and 5 to tie the game, and then his touchdown pass in overtime. Chef's kiss. Wait until you hear this from someone that is a quarterback guru, exactly what he thought of those two plays from Garrett Nussmeier. But every week here on the show, we have an opportunity to visit with Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger. In my opinion, the best there is when it comes to recruiting from the LSU space. And Shea's great. And when you have a day like that, naturally, with an impressive visitor list, a visitor list that will only be bested by the Alabama visitor list coming up here in about a month. But you win the game, fans storm the field. What do the recruits think? I asked Shea that question. Here's what he said.
It was a massive visitor list. And I mean, we were with Cobble earlier today, and he had B-roll of Brian Kelly and the coaches talking to all of the recruits on the sidelines. And from their top commits right now, and many of them were there, whether it's Harlem Berry, the number one running back in the country coming out of New Orleans, or guys like Carius Curd, who's the number two interior offensive lineman in America, but the number one player in Arkansas. Brad Davis gets him flipped from Arkansas to LSU. So it was a huge turnout. Damian Shanklin was the number one player in Indiana, committed to LSU, was the one who took the field storming video that brought up this whole discussion. But I think you laid it out better than I could. All of those things combined with a win and with how it happened made for certainly a lasting impression. And they sell these kids on that, Matt, of Tiger Stadium, what it's like, what to play there, the environment. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. So it will be, that Bama will be the biggest visitor list of the year. So go ahead and put a check mark next to one of them that you've made a pretty big impression on, not just commits, but remember, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a second, Matt, that this class is about wrapped up, which means they've been putting in a lot of heavy lifting for next year, and there were a ton of younger kids there. These guys who are juniors in high school.
One of them was Lamar Brown, who is now the number one player in Louisiana for the class of 2026. Lamar Brown is an offensive lineman out of U High, which if most of you, I would assume you are familiar, but if you're not familiar, U High is on LSU's campus. So that's a school that has produced a tremendous amount of great players, including Jordan Gilbert, current LSU safety. But great players like Nick Brissett who've come through the LSU program. But Lamar Brown is he's a 5-star, one of the top offensive linemen in the country for 2026. And it is thought that he is a heavy lean to LSU. And he was on campus for the Ole Miss game. He's been on campus, his entire high school career. But what an impression that made, and I'll continue to reiterate it. Brian Kelly, during his coaching career, has pumped players into the NFL at 2 positions more than any other. Offensive line, tight end. He's a great offensive lineman. You want him. He has a heck of a story to tell, and Brad Davis is awesome as well. Better believe LSU is a heavy favorite to land Lamar Brown. Now, on the other side of the line is Jahkeem Stewart. That's a player a lot of people have talked about, and we have as well over the last month. So Jahkeem Stewart, of course, was the number one player in the country for 2026 from St. Aug in New Orleans. He transferred to Edna Carr. He is ineligible to play this year as a junior, but he is now reclassified for the class of 2025. So He's working on his schoolwork. He is expected to be on a college campus in January and going through spring football this coming spring to be ready to play for the 2025 season. Jahkeem Stewart was in Eugene, Oregon for the Ducks' big upset win over Ohio State. I asked Shea Dixon his thoughts on a recap of Jahkeem Stewart's visit to Oregon.
Yeah, now that everything's official with Jahkeem, we spent a month talking about the whole withdrawing from St. Aug right before the season and going to Edna Carr and being ineligible, but all in this effort to to reclassify. And not only does he do that, but he says he's going to commit in December, sign the financial aid agreement papers and scholarship papers in December and enroll somewhere in January. So he'll be a spring ball guy, which is good. Get him back on the field practicing, especially missing, given he's not playing this fall and not practicing with Edna Carr. Yes, he set up all these visits. He'll be at LSU, Bama. I know he's going to be at Ohio State, Michigan, which will be the final visit. And then there may be one more mixed in there, but there was this Ohio State, Oregon matchup. And maybe he'll be at Ohio State, Michigan. But Oregon, Ohio State, that one, I guess, right up there at Tiger Stadium had quite a finish. Fans rushed the field. He got to see all that. I still think, I know USC, Southern Cal, is another school in the mix here. He was at that Vegas game to see those two, LSU and USC, play. But Ohio State, I think, Matt, is the team we watch to really battle for. I just feel like Oregon's pretty far from home. As good as they are, as highly ranked as they are, as good of a recruiter as Dan Lanning is, I'm not counting them out. I just think that this one is LSU up front, but the team maybe that could give them a real run could be Ohio State. They just don't get talked about much here.
Why do you think Ohio State doesn't get talked about more?
I think that Oregon is kind of the flavor of the week right now, right? I mean, they just beat Ohio State. He was on the visit. He was all that. So, I mean, he's been out to Eugene a number of times, so that gets pumped up. And then he's been to Southern Cal a bunch. And Eric Henderson, New Orleans native, went to Carr. Went to Aug, is on that staff as the defensive line coach for Lincoln Riley. So they've been on him heavily. But Ohio State, look, Larry Johnson's a guy who's been around the block and coaching as a D-line coach, just like Bo Davis, right? I mean, those guys are held in very high regard. Ohio State's been recruiting him forever, and they're a perennial powerhouse. And I think that he's been up there enough to know that he likes it. So, I don't know. People just seem to get enamored by the West Coast. So Southern Cal, Oregon, he goes on all these trips out there. But I think at the end of the day, the two teams that may be battling this out are the two that probably have had the most long-standing longevity over the past decade, you would argue, right, between Ohio State and LSU.
Shea Dixon, on 3, the Bengal Tiger.
If you want to hear a full chat with Shea, you can get it after further review. Just go to your favorite podcast app, search After Further Review. Love the convo there with Shea every week, and we're super pumped to have him and to share some of that context and content here. Shea has been a long believer that LSU is the front runner for Jahkeem Stewart, and boy, that would be massive. You have fortified your offensive line since Brian Kelly has been here. You got some really talented young defensive linemen on my bro, Dominic McKinley. Boy, if you could have Jahkeem Stewart for 2025, you're talking about just catapulting, in addition to the 4 interior defensive linemen you already have committed for 2025. But we'll look at the future in a bit. You were going to love this conversation with Sean Salisbury about the 2 throws Garrett Nussmeier made to send the game to overtime and then to win it. That's next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Y'all, I know basketball season is right around the bend. Tigers and Matt McMahon, year 3, going to be tossing the ball up. You want to be there for all the action. Game Time can help make it happen. Or Pelicans fans, right there in the blender. There's nothing like that. Man, you want to be on the floor for an NBA game? I'm going to tell you, I've been fortunate enough in my profession to do everything. I've been to World Series games, college football national championship games, NFL games. I've seen it all from the best vantage point you can imagine. On the field, on the court, everything. There is nothing at all like having your feet on the floor for an NBA game. You want to do that? Game Time can help make it happen. And of course, you want to be there for LSU, Alabama, or any of the great college football or NFL games ahead. Make sure you download Game Time. So many reasons why Game Time is my favorite ticketing app. Of course, there's the Game Time Picks, which is a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything. All in pricing. I love that feature. Now, you have to turn that feature on, but when you toggle on this feature, it'll show the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout and a panoramic view from your seat, every seat there at the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We will talk about Garrett Nussmeier to Aaron Anderson and Garrett Nussmeier to Kyron Lacey for as long as we all live. And we can all look at those throws as lay people and realize they were pretty incredible. Well, I had the chance to talk with Sean Salisbury, as we do every week. Sean Salisbury, of course, played in the NFL, was a longtime television analyst on ESPN. Shoot, Sean's been in movies, man. He currently hosts Morning Drive on Sports Talk 790 in Houston, and he's a quarterbacks coach. He tutors and mentors. He's a quarterback coach for young quarterbacks. And I have a chance every single week to visit with Sean Salisbury. And I asked him about Nussmeier's day. And what I'm about to play for you is about 10 minutes long. Full disclosure, it is a long, long clip. And a lot of it is football jargon that you may not know. But I'm here to tell you, if you just stick with me, I promise you, you're not going to care. If you don't know what cover two or too high or zone read or slow drag or any of that stuff means, it doesn't matter if you know the verbiage. It doesn't matter. The way Sean explains this, you're going to get it, that it is so incredible what Garrett Nussmeier did to tie the game and then to win the game.
Well, I'll just say this. Is there a tougher player at the position, mentally tougher player? Physically is obvious. A mentally tougher player at the position in the country right now? If there is, This year, I haven't seen him. I love guys. This is going to sound odd. Any of us, including me, Matty, at times, could play really well when things are going great. It's when things kind of go to hell in a handbasket, you put your team in a bind with a couple turnovers. Do you still have the guts to find a way to get it done? I know that sounds cheesy, but find a way to get it done and get it done in big fashion in hostile situation, even though it's at home against a good team, and make it happen when it would have been easy after you start to struggle, get your head down and make a second interception, go to a third one. I'm going to tell you something, man. I think that the LSU is one of the sneaky players in this because, their defense, let's not, before I get going, their defense, that's who LSU is supposed to be defensively in that football game. But back to Nussmeier, when you got that guy, which LSU knows about that guy, Burrow, and look what our guy is doing in Washington right now. Jaden Daniels, the way he's playing. So Nussmeier's, first of all, his DNA, it doesn't fall far from the tree. His dad was a tough guy, but this guy is different. And LSU's used to this, but the average fan watching it may not be outside of Baton Rouge. I'm telling you, to make some of the throws he made on late in that game on fourth down, to understand not just the physical part of it or where to throw it. Before I get to the one that took him to overtime, which I've watched 100 times, and I'm going to use it when I'm talking to my young quarterbacks as teaching material for how you throw the ball, which I try. I paint it to them. I paint it to my quarterbacks, that coverage and how you make that throw. And I'm using Nussmeier's that tape for it. But I go to overtime. First off, love the way you come out instead of run it, give me a quick. Let's attack them when they're just coming out of overtime, and let's let them get into overtime. Let's see if their defense is sitting on their heels. Are they ready for this? So you do the old stutter go. And here's the thing. When we run a stutter go in football, you know what we automatically think is that you're going to run by the guy, so throw it to the back pylon. That's the first thought. Break in the huddle, you think stutter go. We've run hitches. We've run underneath. They're expecting hitch to get a completion, move it down closer, slant route. It's stutter. Mm-hmm. Well, LSU, the Ole Miss guy played it right. So you come back out, you make a little pump fake, and the little stutter, the DB doesn't bite like you expect. A little bit, but gets out of his back pedal. And what's he do? Still stays in front of the receiver. So the normal throw would be throw it, but the defenders are still out in front of it, and it's a 50-50 ball, and you hope you get it, goes out of bounds 2nd and 10. What does he do? Underthrows it on purpose, because after he makes the pump, thinking I got to throw it deep to the pylon because he's beat the guy. Now he just drop it in the end zone and catches it because the guy's still in his back pedal or sitting on his heels on the stutter go. What's he do? He throws an underthrow because the guy played the stutter pretty good. Underthrows it, guy overruns him. He's still thinking fade, ball comes up short. You've seen it. And boom, ball caught, touchdown. Now, really quickly, let me take you, and I could name a bunch of throws. The guts at the end of the game to keep making 4th down throws and keep being accurate and using his feet and using his arm to keep plays alive. I'm going to tell you, Matty, he's carrying 10-pound shot puts his balls, man. I'm just telling you. And he just is. Those you use them in the Olympics because they are dangling, man, because he's got them. That it was 2-man, so people understand when we play 2-man in motion, the 2 corners and the linebackers underneath are playing man coverage.
You're talking about now the 4th and 5.
I'm talking about the one to get him to overtime, the 4th down throw. Got it. And I had heard you mention, Matty, about why not get the 1st down.
Yeah.
Here's why, and I'm with you. I see too many, hey, it's 4th down and 2, throwing a fade out of the end zone, right? What are you doing? I see that in the NFL. Like, give me a high percentage. Let's live to play another down, and it's the last play of the game. Well, the game wasn't over, but it was a 4th down play, so you got to have big stones to throw it. Is when they play 2-man, what it is, folks, you're playing man underneath and 2 high safety. So you're guarding against the fade route because you can't throw it against 2 high safeties because they got each of them got half the field. The place to attack is the bender, the beater, the bender where it's a 2 deep is the middle of the field. Now, if it's zone, you got to read the Mike linebacker because if he gets underneath it, which is his job, then you throw the check down to the guy checking down to the crosser in front of him, get the 1st down.
Yeah.
If it's 2-man, vertical routes on 2-man are hard. You want crossers or that bender versus 2 deep. So what they do is if you watch, they trail. They let the guy jump out in front of him. The underneath coverage guys trail because they know they got help over the top. They're guarding against any dig route, the deep end cut to take the pick that Brady and Breeze threw so well, the pick route, the mesh play. So what does he do? They run the inside slot bender, which is against 2 deep. I tell quarterbacks, and the greatest play in the red zone versus 2 deep is the 2 deep bender where the slot guy leans at about 10 to 12 yards, takes the middle of the field. Everything was wide safeties. You got all that opening. But the trail guy, if you look, when that ball came out of Nussmeier's hand, the receiver was not open. The trail guy was trailing, and you can't – matter of fact, the receiver couldn't see Nussmeier, and Nussmeier can't see the receiver. But here's the number one, what I was telling you about young quarterbacks. This is the epitome and the perfect example of of anticipation. I'm sure he's talked to his old man about this a million times, but anticipation of trusting what you see, and that means pre-snap. He knew damn well when that ball was snapped because they motioned, it's man because they followed the guy across. Okay, we got motion. Man, is it man everywhere? He saw the 2 high safeties. They're playing man under and 2 deep zone. So he knows right now, I'm going for the bender. Yeah. I'm gonna throw, and he throws him open. Guy leans, runs. The ball comes out, and if you look at I love the end zone shot of it because the ball is out and it's a 1 ball. We call layering 1, 2, 3. So you got to get it over anybody underneath, but it's a rip shot, and he throws that ball with anticipation. He doesn't see the receiver's eyes or the jersey. Everybody's back is turned, and he throws him open. He threw it exactly where you had to throw it with the right. If that ball's too high, somebody makes it, safety comes off, his guy may make an adjustment. It's got to be the right trajectory. It's got to be thrown on time. Put your foot in the ground and let it rip. And you can't be, well, should I throw it? It is once you know coverage pre-snap, you say, the bender's going to beat him. Bam! Throws him open. You could teach a lot of Sunday guys that throw. That is a throw that is against 2-man. They've got the great coverage on. The problem is the throw, if he's hesitant, the guy beats him to the bender. The guy he'll undercut him. So what's he do? He leans, ball's out, runs right through it. You have that is a difficult throw, but a friggin' great one. And then I'm thinking, I'm watching Stones to get him in that position. I'm saying, I don't know what's going to happen. But then on 4th down, that dude makes a rip shot bender throw versus 2-man. and anticipates, when you throw it, I guarantee people are at home. If you see it, go, no! Oh, my gosh. So to date, I've seen a lot of great throws in college football this year, but in the moment of that game, in your home crowd audience, toughest place to play, but it's at home, and you've had a tough game, because if he would, coming out of that game, they would have talked how tough he was and how good he is, but, man, Nuss put us in a couple bad situations. But to not worry about it, not let the first quarter or second or any other throw bother him, and then to have the guts to pull the trigger, because a lot of times when you make mistakes early, you're hesitant to make that throw. He hits the bender on a rip shot for the touchdown and then goes down and they attack right off the beat and go and score. I loved it, and that will be in my teaching files on how to throw a 2-deep bender versus 2-zone or 2-man with anticipation and throwing a receiver open, and that's the only way that ball gets fit in there.
I love it so much, man. You know, it's funny.
I just used up your whole segment, dude. I just want to keep talking about him because I've been impressed every week, but there's just another step to a game of that magnitude, 2 playoff caliber teams, and for him to have the nuts to throw that ball in there, God bless him, man. I loved it.
I'm so glad it's where you went, because So, Sean, the question I asked Brian Kelly in this press conference yesterday was about that play. And I asked, and
I haven't heard what Brian said. I'm curious to see what.
No, so that's why it's even good that you went that way, because I asked it as to say, look, it's 4th and 5. Like, if you don't get 5 yards, the game is over. And you took a shot. So was that the call, or did Garrett? And he went through. He said, well, it was the third read in the progression, so he went through his progressions. But the way you said it was like, no. He knew immediately where he was going with that ball, and we're showing the clip, Sean. I mean, there is he ain't going through 3 progressions, dog. I mean, he hit that back foot, and it was out of his hands. It was incredible.
Listen, Brian's right. You're designing that play. Well, maybe we got something a little safer.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, Xavier Thomas is coming on a crosser at the 10-yard line, and he is open by 5 yards. I mean, it's his first and goal.
Some kind of big route. Everything you want, horizontal runaways versus 2-man.
Yes.
And it's all. That's why playing this quarterback position is so great. Yeah, Coach, I get it. But I got the ball in my hand, and I make the decision. And he'll live with the decision. I mean, Nuss would. What I love is that, okay, he goes through it, but breaking that huddle and seeing, okay, motion across man. And he saw the safeties, and it's not just pre-snap, but the second the ball snapped, fly to their deep half. So he's sitting there thinking, okay, if I have to reset my feet and hit the crosser, I will. But hell no. Yeah. I'm putting a foot down on their throat, and then you got to execute the throw. The decision was great, but it's all fun and game. That's why I love a quarterback. Don't come and tell me, what'd you think you see? What'd you see? I'll never blame you if you saw something from the quarterback stand. If you come on and say, well, I thought it. No, don't think anything. You saw a motion man, wide safeties. You had a guy if you needed to reset your feet and you couldn't pull the trigger. I can promise you, Nuss knew when that ball was with the motion and they split, and right when the ball snapped and pre-snap, where he wanted to go with the ball, and it presented that big window for him to rip it in, but it didn't look like a window because the trail man guy could have undercut it if it's not the perfect throw or with perfect anticipation. Yeah, and Brian probably said, well, the third one, but he's got a big old smile on his face, realizing that his quarterback had the balls Brian wants him to have to take that shot, but also make that throw.
Oh, man. Sean, we're and we got to go, but listen, I'm glad you just did that in the detail you did, because that is a play that I said this on Monday, and I think fans understand it, but for as long as we live, we are going to talk about that play. And so every bit
defining moments, right?
Yes.
Defining plays. Agreed, Matty.
I mean, every bit of detail about that is something that we will tell and retell forever. Like forever and ever. It was one of those days and one of those plays.
And I know you got to go, but listen, if they go on and get where they want to go this year, you're going to look back at that series, from that, and then to jump right into overtime. And it wasn't a missed throw. It was a smart throw because the stutter didn't work on the DB. So he put together some great decision-making, which those guys that coach on Sunday are going to friggin' love.
Yeah.
I hope you love that as much as I did. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Tigers are headed up to Fayetteville. You want to bet on them? You can. FanDuel is the best place to do it. But hey, NFL fans, let me remind you, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same place right on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Tigers are a 2.5-point road favorite over Arkansas. It's always so close, tough to tell. But if you want to bet on it, you're confident in Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, and the crew, you can do it at FanDuel.com. And might I mention as well, you can bet on the Heisman odds. And Tigers keep winning. This might be just about the best odds you're going to get on Garrett Nussmeier because they keep winning. It's going to be nothing but improving odds and not as good a price. Maybe jump on the Nuss bus now over at FanDuel. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. So I did mention the Heisman odds, and that's what we'll wrap up with. Right now, Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State, is the betting favorite at plus 230. Followed by Dylan Gabriel at plus 260. Big drop-off before you get to Travis Hunter, who didn't play last week, of course. He's a plus 600. Expected to be back this week after his concussion. Cameron Ward, also for the quarterback from Miami, at plus 650. Then a colossal drop. Jalen Milroe at plus 1,400. This is the crew, however, that I'm most interested in. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck at plus 1,500. Then Cade Klubnik at Clemson plus 1,900. Nussmeier, Drew Aller from Penn State plus 3,000. If you think LSU is going to run the table or that LSU is going to be a playoff team, you may want to get on Garrett Nussmeier now. They go beat Arkansas, then beat A&M, and then go into their bye and beat Alabama. You ain't never going to see plus 3,000 again for Nussmeier. Now, I'm not telling you I think LSU goes undefeated the rest of the way or Nussmeier wins the Heisman. All I'm telling you is if they do, that's the best price you're going to get because every passing week that they win, those odds will drop. So it will get less and less likely that you'll get those odds again for Nussmeier. I do think Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers at plus 1,500 are pretty fascinating as well. Because I know there's a lot of people high on Ashton Jeanty, but LSU fans can appreciate this. Leonard Fournette in 2015 wasn't only the front runner. They had started engraving his name on the trophy when the calendar flipped to November. And then LSU went to Tuscaloosa, and the Tigers lost, and Leonard had a really rough day, as did everybody. And then the Tigers lost to Arkansas, then lost to Ole Miss. And Leonard Fournette wasn't even invited to New York City. So for Ashton Jeanty and Boise State, who don't play an imposing schedule, it's not that dissimilar for me looking at a guy like Colt Brennan back in the day, the quarterback from Hawaii, who put up gaudy stats, but voters aren't ultimately going to cast their ballot for that player because of the competition. Heisman typically would go to the quarterback on the best team, unless if there is a transcendent statistical anomaly like Jaden Daniels in 2023. So I look at Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, who played this weekend in Austin, and go, whoever wins that game catapults themselves at or near the top of those Heisman odds. And I have a sneaking suspicion Georgia's going to run the table. And if they beat Texas and Tennessee and Ole Miss and Florida the rest of the way, Georgia Tech too. Yeah. Georgia finishes 11-1. Beck throws for nearly 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I think he wins the Heisman Trophy. But Nussmeier still very much in the running as well. Be interesting. You follow along at FanDuel. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked on LSU. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, how about Locked on SEC? Check out Chris Gordy, LSU alum. Find Locked on SEC on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Same here for Locked on LSU. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, please rate us, leave a review, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.